Christmas coincides with the 5th anniversary of my marriage to my wife, Lucy. We had planned to head to the Aegean Sea for the holidays together. But on the morning of our departure, Lucy hurriedly packed her luggage and told me, I got a last-minute business trip, and I believed her. But late at night, I saw her first love, Jackson, posted on social media. There they were, snuggled up together, fingers interlocked. Their matching bracelets shone brightly. I chuckled bitterly. She made it to the Aegean Sea after all. Just not with me. I didn't call to confront her. I simply reacted calmly and gave the post a like. A minute later, Lucy called, sounding flustered. It's just a misunderstanding, she insisted. We just happened to bump into each other on the business trip. I'll make it up to you next Christmas, I promise. I gave a dismissive laugh. No worries. Enjoy your trip. Lucy looked shocked. Aren't you jealous this time? Lucy returned after a week. When she came home lugging her suitcase, I usually rushed to help her with shoes. But not this time. Lucy leaned against the door, frowning. Gary, where are my slippers? I always had her slippers ready, but not today. Seeing me on the couch, glued to the TV, I said, in the shoe cabinet, find them yourself. Her frown deepened but eventually softened. She got her own slippers and came to me saying, I'm a bit hungry. Could you make me some wonton? No matter the time, even at 3 a.m., I'd have jumped up to cook for her if she said she was hungry. But today I just replied flatly, I'm busy. Order something. Lucy looked annoyed but sighed, then softened her voice. Honey, I'm sorry I made you mad with the trip. I promise it won't happen again. I even brought you a gift. Can you forgive me? I still didn't look her way. Calm as ever. You're overthinking. I'm not mad. She stared, puzzled, showing me a simply wrapped gift from her luggage. Unwrapping it, she revealed a tie. Do you like it? I picked it just for you, she said eagerly. I remembered Jackson's post from 3 days ago about a store promo. Spend $10,000 and get a tie. That very blue and green tie Lucy was now claiming as her special gift. I didn't show dissatisfaction, just accepted it with a quiet thanks. Thoughtful. Her eyes widened in surprise. That's it? I nodded. What else were you expecting? Holding my arm, she tried to explain. I'm not mad. Jackson and I just happened to be at the airport, and we only had dinner together. I nodded. Yeah, I get it. I'm not upset. My reaction seemed to shock her. Why aren't you jealous? She asked, unsure. Doesn't matter, I said, standing to leave. You going somewhere? She blocked my path. What about my anniversary gift? A month ago, I bid for a sapphire bracelet at an auction, something she'd noticed in the news. I surprised sent her $3,000 over the phone. I forgot to get one. Buy whatever you like. Lucy went silent. 5 years in, I'd never missed preparing holiday gifts for her. After pausing, she furiously grabbed my hand. What about the bracelet? I just laughed, pointing. What bracelet? You already have a couple's bracelet with Jackson. She looked embarrassed. It's just a friendly gift from him. Don't overthink it. I can take it off. Having lived with her for years, I knew her tells. Her wavering and clutching her clothes told me she was uneasy. Knowing I'd given up, I pinched the bridge of my nose, wearied, as I turned to leave. In 5 years, I'd always put Lucy first, often losing touch with my old friends. I just flew straight to City A, calling up my old pals for a gathering. When my buddy Mike got the call, he quickly set up a dinner. With a few rounds of drinks in, they all looked at me, saying almost in unison, "We thought you forgot us after you got married. By the way, does Lucy know you're here?" I took a sip, chuckling, "Call me anytime. I don't need her permission anymore." My phone buzzed nonstop, Lucy calling me repeatedly. Ever since Jackson came back, there were times Lucy wouldn't come home, and I'd anxiously call her. I'd once angrily questioned why she was unreachable, only to hear, "Calm down. Seeing countless calls from you is nauseating." Now, she seemed to be on the other side of that. We partied until late, and as we were about to leave, Lucy stormed in. She sat next to me, taking my drink, saying, "Drinking won't solve your problems. Don't forget about your stomach issues." Suddenly, I felt a bit off by her caring demeanor. I glanced at her coldly. "Why are you here?" My friends politely greeted her, which she returned with a smile. Gripping my hand, she whispered, "You didn't answer my calls. I had to find you." Annoyed, I brushed her off. "I've told you, Lucy, we're done. Don't do this again." Faced with my firm stance, she was stunned. I took my friends with me, leaving her behind. Lucy chased after us, shouting, "Gary, I'm trying to make amends. What more do you want? We're almost 30. Couples argue and then disappear. Can you just be reasonable?" Lucy hopped into the car and came with me back to Mike's place. On the way, she pulled me aside to talk again. I shut it down right away, and she was a bit pissed. "You've made enough fuss. You've had enough to drink. How about going home with me? I know you're jealous, but there's nothing going on with Jackson." I laughed it off. "You got it all wrong. I drank because I was happy seeing the guys, nothing else." After saying that, I pushed past Lucy and went inside with Mike, ignoring her knocking all night. I slept soundly that night. The next morning, Mike knocked on my door, saying Lucy was there. When I came downstairs, there she was, sitting at the table looking all annoyed. I knew she was upset. Normally, just a frown from her would have me running to cheer her up. But this time, I didn't look back and caught a cab. In the airport lounge, I ran into Lucy again. She came up to me, clearly ticked off. "Gary, we're married. Don't you think hiding from me over small stuff is a bit much?" Without looking up, I typed away on my keyboard, "You're overthinking it. I'm not hiding." As soon as I said that, her phone chimed with a special alert. Through the call, I heard Jackson say, "Where are you? Don't forget about tonight's event. This deal's on the line." Ever since Jackson came back 3 years ago, Lucy had been secretly helping him under my name. I was going to just ignore it, but Lucy's little smirk was too much. That gentle tone she used wasn't something I ever got. Usually, when she spoke to me, it was all business. I'd asked her to be nicer, but she'd always snap back. "Running the company is stressful enough. Can't you stop being so demanding?" Thinking about all this, I quickly sent 2 messages to my assistant to inform our partners that Lucy and I were headed for divorce. After her call, Lucy turned to me. That sweet smile vanished. "There's company stuff I need to take care of, and the next flight isn't available. Give me your ticket. Wait for the next one." I didn't budge. She repeated, and I bluntly replied, "I didn't get a return ticket to B-City." Lucy exploded. "Gary, so you're just pretending at the airport? Telling me you're jealous, right? You're so immature." Then she stormed off without looking back. Watching her leave, I felt a pang of bitterness. Jackson calls and Lucy drops everything for him, like that New Year's post about her special someone. I didn't get a return ticket because I was headed to Singapore. Taking over the company, breaking into supermarkets has been my dream, and that plot of land out west was perfect. Mike recommended a mentor, an old friend of his dad's. Just one dinner and I'd learn a ton. We hit it off. Over the meal, he helped answer many of my questions. He liked me, offered to have me stay and learn at his company for 6 months. He promised that with his help, I'd make it into supermarkets and build a legacy. I had no reason to turn down such an offer. After dinner, as I was dropping him off, Lucy was blowing up my phone with calls. I was getting frustrated until he commented, "Do you need to let your spouse know about being in Singapore?" He must have noticed the affectionate name I had for Lucy. I shook my head and explained, "Former spouse, I've decided to divorce." Once my mentor was home, I called Lucy back. As soon as she picked up, she demanded, "Gary, what's going on? Why are our partners saying they'll only discuss deals with you now? You know how important this is to me. What happened?" Listening to her typical commanding tone, I couldn't help but laugh. "So what?" Then Jackson's voice came over the line, "Lucy, you've got to help me. You're all I've got." Lucy calmly reassured him, "Don't worry. I've got this." Gripping the wheel, I slammed it in anger. Lucy insisted they were just friends, yet she was all tender when she spoke to him. When did Lucy start wearing this fake mask with me? It was disgusting. Coldly, I ended the call and shut off my phone. I stayed in Singapore for 2 days, chatting and having tea with my mentor, doing the onboarding paperwork, and finding a place nearby. I asked my assistant to let our partners know I was moving abroad and to thank them for their support. There was no sign of Lucy returning home. Everything seemed the same. I changed the lock code, took a day to rest. Our partners began calling, wanting to set up a farewell dinner. Couldn't say no. The door to the private room was slightly open. I heard Jackson chatting with our partners. I was suspicious and surprised to see Lucy and Jackson at a simple farewell. I hesitated for a moment, then walked in. Jackson, seated next to Lucy at the head of the table, looked at me briefly. Today's gathering has all the friends. Just sit wherever. Lucy added, last night's party got chaotic. Let's have an open talk since everyone's here. Everyone was watching me, but seeing my cold look, they kept quiet. Jackson sat there smugly, grinning at me. I really didn't want to sit with those two, so I just pulled up a chair and sat down. Throughout the meal, Jackson kept raising his glass to toast the business partners, enthusiastically talking about the bright future after signing the deal. He seemed genuinely happy tonight. Meanwhile, my phone kept lighting up with messages from Lucy. I'm gonna announce something later. Just play along. Okay? Any issues we'll discuss at home. You should see by now that there's nothing going on between Jackson and me. Nothing to hide. I read through all her texts and then saw the latest one pop up. Jackson's probably gonna have too much to drink tonight. Might need to take him home first. I raised an eyebrow and sent back a short whatever. A few drinks in, Lucy saw the timing was right, stood up with Jackson, and announced a toast. Starting today, Jackson is the new head we're grooming in our company. He'll be handling all future interactions with you guys. Please give him your support. Then, the business partner closest to me seemed puzzled and asked, interactions? What interactions? The company has already decided to pull out of City B. We're all set to withdraw our investments too. Who are you gonna interact with? What? Pull out of City B? Lucy looked at me in shock. I nodded calmly, yeah, I'm planning to relocate the company overseas. Lucy's eyes widened in disbelief. You're taking the company overseas? What about me? I hadn't meant to spill the beans like this. I just wanted to finish the dinner peacefully. But I didn't think Lucy brought Jackson here with this in mind. What withdrawal? Why didn't I know about this? The business partner glanced at me and continued, Gary didn't tell you? Tonight's dinner is a farewell party. Who knows when we'll work together again? Hearing this, Lucy shot up and accused me. Gary, what does he mean? Are you really going abroad? I glanced at her, downed my drink, stood up, and said, thank you all for your company over the years. Let's meet again if we get the chance. Then I turned to leave. Lucy grabbed my arm with tear-filled eyes and shouted, explain yourself before you leave. When did you decide this? Why am I just finding out? Her voice trembled, laced with anger and disbelief. I barely contained my own anger and shook her hand off. Enough. Knowing now isn't too late. I said coldly. Lucy, seeing my impatient expression, angrily picked up a nearby wine bottle and hurled it at my face. I couldn't dodge in time, and the bottle hit me squarely on the head. In an instant, blood gushed everywhere. I fell straight back, caught by Mike. Perhaps seeing my bloody face, Lucy panicked and immediately screamed, quick, call an ambulance. My vision blurred, and as I shut my eyes, I heard the frantic sounds of people shouting around me. My eyelids felt like they weighed a ton, and I couldn't lift them. I held on till I was outside the operating room. As the doctor asked for a family member to sign the surgery consent form, I tugged on Mike's shirt and whispered, you sign it. Lucy, exasperated, rushed to my bedside. Gary, I'm your wife. Are you really still making trouble at a time like this? I weakly waved my hand, replying, not making trouble. In my heart, you've long been just an ex-wife. Before I passed out, I heard her voice trembling hysterically. I haven't agreed to a divorce. I won't divorce you. When I woke up, I was lying in a hospital room getting in for. The white hospital walls made my eyes ache. Lucy was holding my hand, asleep. Remembering her face full of anger when she attacked me yesterday, I couldn't help but shiver. She woke up and sleepily asked, how do you feel? Are you uncomfortable anywhere? Hearing her concern, I was skeptical. She had been the one to hurt me. I turned away, not wanting to say more. Who would have guessed? She smiled softly, cupped my face and said, "Don't be mad. I was just overwhelmed last night and hurt you by mistake." I sneered and pushed her hand away again. Maybe she hadn't noticed the lingering scent of Jackson's woody cologne on her. It made me nauseous. Seeing the disgust in my eyes, Lucy pleaded, "Gary, what do I have to do to get back to how we were? I really just went on a business trip. There's no need to drag this out so long. I used to think that as a couple we should save face for each other." But over time, Lucy repeatedly stomped on my dignity. I couldn't stand it anymore. Lucy's phone buzzed twice. She looked at the messages, then sat by my bed, holding my hand, and said in a different tone, "Can you call the business partners? Jackson really wants this project. We can discuss you going abroad later. Just help him first, all right? Let's not get others involved in our issues." I hadn't expected her to still think I was just being jealous and throwing a tantrum. I frowned and replied coolly, "I won't make that call. If you want to help him, do it yourself." Before Lucy could explode, my phone rang. My mentor asked if I had packed. I explained I got injured and might delay my trip by a week. After a few reminders, the call ended. Lucy was stunned. "You've arranged everything? Even booked your flight?" Her voice trembled with a bit of fear. I realized and replied flatly, "Yeah." My tone was distant and cold. Hearing this, Lucy's face darkened. "Gary, we're married. Remember how you said we'd always discuss things? Why did you make such a big decision on your own? Not even a word to me?" Barely managing a smile, I responded, "You were busy socializing and traveling with Jackson. I had no chance to tell you." Listening to her, my emotions were all over the place. When we got engaged, we agreed to trust each other and discuss any problems. But ever since Jackson came back, Lucy would often stay out late and wouldn't let me ask questions. When I did, she'd chide me, "I'm an adult. Do I really have to report to you all the time? You seriously have too much of a control freak in you." Later on, I could only find out about Lucy's updates from Jackson's social media. Didn't think that after all this, she would still use that promise to bind me without batting an eye. Right then, the delivery guy walked in with a bunch of sunflowers. "Those are my favorite." Lucy looked a bit awkward. I knew the flowers weren't from her. What a coincidence. Lucy always had this habit of sending a bouquet to friends and family whenever they were in the hospital, like a little gesture of care. First thing when I woke up, I scanned the whole room. She didn't change one bit, never made that effort for me. After Lucy took the flowers, she awkwardly laughed and said, "Mike is quite thoughtful," and I felt a stinging in my eyes. It's so ridiculous how someone I cherished so much didn't even care as much as one of my buddies did. I had my assistant bring over the divorce papers, hoping to wrap it up before heading abroad. The moment Lucy took the papers, she furiously tore them apart and threw the pieces in my face. She didn't even glance at the terms. She was raging, "Gary, enough with the jealousy. I hold a lot of key secrets to the company. Think about the consequences before you stir up a divorce. We've been married for 5 years. Some things can be worked on. I advise you to calm down and come to me after a while." With that, she walked away without a backward glance. As I watched her storm off, I sighed, wondering why I was so headstrong to chase after her in the first place. The first time I met Lucy was during freshman orientation. She was standing at the school gate in a white dress, looking hesitant. I happened to pass by and she grabbed me, carefully asking if I could help her. Her suitcase was broken. I was drawn to the dimples at the corners of her mouth. Normally, I wouldn't be so helpful, but despite rushing to a rehearsal at the main hall, I helped her take her luggage to her dorm without hesitation. She pulled out a bag of local specialties from her suitcase to thank me and even asked for my contact info. Later, we both got into the student council and gradually got closer. We ate together, watched movies, and studied at the library. I noticed she often ate just vegetables and soon started looking for part-time jobs. I couldn't help but ask if she was having financial difficulties. At first, she didn't want to share her family situation with me. But soon enough, she came to me crying, asking to borrow money due to her dad's urgent surgery. I transferred the money right away. After that, I gave Lucy a supplementary card to make her life a bit easier. Initially, Lucy didn't want to spend my money, but she borrowed twice more due to her dad's worsening condition, and only then did she start using the card. Perhaps she herself got used to my giving, thinking I'd always help her unconditionally. I could see Lucy wouldn't easily divorce, but time was running out. In the evening, the property management called me, saying Lucy was making a scene outside, unable to get into the house, and had even called a locksmith. I had instructed them days ago not to let Lucy back into my place. I could hear Lucy shouting over the phone, "I'm the owner. How dare you change the lock? You have no right to stop me." Hearing Lucy's shrew-like voice, I rubbed my temples and decided to go over, figuring I'd also use the chance to once again discuss the divorce. When I got home, the cops were there. I was the one who called them. Lucy, seeing me, grabbed my wrist, passionately proving herself, "He's my husband. We just had a little spat and he changed the password on the sly. He's been hurt and in the hospital." I didn't want to bother him, so I called the locksmith to change the lock. I frowned, interrupting her impatiently. "We're going through a divorce. We're not a couple anymore. You don't have the right to enter my house, let alone change the lock." As soon as I said it, Lucy exploded. "This house is marital property. I own half. You can't just kick me out without a word. Do you remember your proposal promises? You said everything of yours was mine." I shook my head. "Lucy, I gave you everything because I loved you. But no one can tolerate someone who cheats repeatedly and still wants love." Once I finished, Lucy's eyes flared red with anger as she gripped the corner of my shirt. "I don't care. This is my home. Open the door right now. I need to get my stuff." I did plan to arrange a time for her to pick up her belongings. Figured today was as good as any, so I agreed. Who knew once she got inside, she locked herself in the room. I was annoyed, knocked on the door, reminding her, "You've got 3 hours. I have to get back to the hospital. Pack up and move out." I sat quietly on the couch. An hour later, the doorbell rang. I struggled up from the couch and opened the door to see Jackson's face. He was holding a transparent bag with a pink bunny-eared pajama inside. He glanced past me and asked, "Lucy back?" I noticed a faint pink mark on Jackson's neck and, not interested in engaging, moved to shut the door. But he blocked me cheekily. "What do you want?" I grilled with restrained anger. Jackson smiled, handing over the bag. "Lucy left this in my suitcase the other day. I just thought I'd drop it off." Even though I had resolved to end things with Lucy, seeing her intimate apparel in another guy's bag pissed me off. I pointed behind me. "She's in the room. Go on up, you might as well get cozy." His smug look wavered briefly, a flicker of guilt crossing his eyes, but he quickly composed himself. "Gary, don't get the wrong idea. It's not like that between Lucy and me. Enough with you, I'm heading back to the hospital. Get her out of here." Right as I shut the door, Lucy rushed out, frantically yelling, "Do you have to be so harsh? I've already explained. There's nothing between me and Jackson. Why do you always have to come at me so hard? Gary, let's have a serious talk once you're out of the hospital." The door slammed shut. I pressed my lips together and didn't say a word. I hailed a cab by the roadside, gave the driver the hospital address, and closed my eyes, exhausted. I ended up staying in the hospital for 3 more days. To my surprise, Lucy started driving 40 minutes every day to see me. She stayed the whole day until sunset. I told her to leave, but she refused, saying, "Gary, I'm doing this to show you I care. I don't want to be apart. Please reconsider going abroad." I called her crazy, told her she didn't understand anything, but Lucy did what she wanted anyway. I tried to talk to the hospital about stopping her visits, but the nurse said Lucy hadn't caused any trouble, so she had the right to come. I even had 2 security guards posted at my door, but Lucy called the police and showed them our marriage certificate. The police told us not to waste public resources. I was drained, so I gave up fighting and focused on getting better. Lucy mistakenly thought I was coming around and tried even harder to show she cared. To make my flight on time, I checked out of the hospital on the 6th evening. Lucy had said she'd come by later that day. Back home, I got busy packing and didn't notice my phone lighting up until she knocked. Furious. Only then did I realize it was late. I opened the door and pushed 3 big suitcases toward her. Lucy looked shocked. "What's the meaning of this?" I replied coldly, "I packed up your clothes. Take them." She looked troubled, hesitating. "Did you go into my closet?" I snorted, pointing to the suitcase. "I put that wooden box in for you." In 5 years of marriage, I'd never gone into Lucy's closet, so I didn't know she kept the box so visible. Inside was an old diary, full of teenage Lucy's feelings for Jackson. Every word was filled with emotion, along with a carefully preserved photo of Jackson. Seeing my expression, Lucy immediately tried to explain. "Don't misunderstand. Once I put that box there, I never opened it again. Jackson and I—" "Enough," I interrupted. "Lucy, I don't want to hear another word about you and Jackson." I pushed her and the suitcases out. That night, Lucy didn't leave, and I sat by the window watching the moon all night. I looked down at her and wondered, when things changed between us, maybe it started with that watch. Lucy told me she'd bought a limited edition watch, then said it was unavailable after I got back from a trip. When I pressed her, she was annoyed and claimed she'd misspoken. Yet that watch ended up with Jackson, praised at his company's opening for obtaining such a rare piece. Lucy probably thought I didn't know any of this, but since I decided on separating, I'd been investigating. Even prepared as I was, the evidence still hurt to see. At least I was glad we had no kids. Over the years, discussions about kids came up at gatherings. Lucy always said I was too busy. In front of others, I played along, agreeing it was my issue. Yet, clear to her, Lucy always refused to have kids with me. Her diary made it clear. She wanted kids with only one person. And I knew. It wasn't me. Before leaving, I had the security remove Lucy, who had spent the night outside. As my car went past the security office, our eyes met. Once her every smile moved me, but her weary face no longer tugged at my heart. That's what not loving someone feels like. Before my flight took off, I gave Lucy one last gift, delivered to her since our investigation: Jackson's affairs with 2 other women post-divorce. He'd painted his ex as the unfaithful one, but she wasn't. Jackson manipulated Lucy, tricking her into aiding his company, growing business, even sacrificing herself. His ex had given me plenty of proof, with one request: to see Jackson punished for his misdeeds. Karma caught up. His company's finances were shady. I reported him and sought to reclaim what Lucy spent on his business. After hours in the air, my phone buzzed with unread messages, mostly from Lucy. I didn't reply. It was all meant to end. She should have received the evidence and court summons by now. Lucy wouldn't sign, so I took the divorce to court. Once settled in my mentor's firm abroad, a month later, I had to go back for the trial. On the hearing day, I saw Lucy, eyes sunken, expression gloomy. In just a month, she was almost unrecognizable. Seeing me, she got emotional, her eyes lighting up as she called out, "Gary." I calmly lifted my gaze. There was a chilling depth of coldness in his eyes that made her tense up. She didn't finish her sentence because the evidence we provided was solid. The court ruled directly for Lucy to leave with nothing. Jackson, after being arrested for tax evasion, shifted the responsibility of compensation onto Lucy. After hearing the court's decision, Lucy collapsed directly onto her seat. Before leaving, I glanced at her twice. Her face was ashen, just as I expected. She still called out to me, "Gary, can you not take that money? You know I can't pay it." Proud Lucy, begging so humbly, was a day I never thought I'd see. I remembered the first year after we got married. She had a huge row at a salon just because someone accidentally stepped on her new shoes. She demanded that woman apologize publicly and compensate her. When I got her call, I supported her by buying that salon just for her. At that time, I was spoiling her to the extreme. Even if friends said I was being unreasonable, I didn't care. I only thought about how to please Lucy. If she asked, I'd find a way to get her a ladder to the stars. Now hearing her pleas, I didn't even want to turn back. Gary, help me, please. She saw my silence and added more. I interrupted, Lucy, compared to the pain you caused me these years, this is nothing. Her voice trembled as she defended, Gary, I know I was wrong, terribly wrong, but I truly love you. Please believe me. At this point, I couldn't believe Lucy could still say the word love to me. It was ironic, choosing to betray me for the man hidden in her heart. Feigning love because she can't repay me. What else could Lucy not say or do? My heart sank into an icy abyss. I shook my head, sighed, and walked away. From her suitcase, she took out a simply wrapped gift. When unwrapped, it was a tie. Mike called me on video the night I arrived in the new country. He asked, do you regret it? I knew what he meant. The family business was my parents' legacy to me. My decision to leave B-City was shocking to everyone. But they misunderstood why I left. It wasn't because of Lucy. My love for challenges woke long ago. I genuinely want to make my parents' legacy thrive and go further. 6 months later, I started a new company in the new country. On opening day, I saw Lucy in the back of the crowd. In these 6 months, Lucy hadn't paid me back a single cent. I knew she could only give so much and I didn't force her. Better than nothing, I thought. Though as long as the debt lingered, she'll be occasionally in my life. Whenever I received her transfers, I sighed. Life's river always pushes you forward, forces you to grow. After the ribbon cutting, I didn't go to greet Lucy. Next to me stood my mentor's daughter. She was with me through the streets and alleys of the new country. She was there whenever I needed courage. I remember when I was drunk, she'd always say, believe that you are a good person. Ending marriage with Lucy closed my heart indeed. When I assumed I'd live alone forever, she showed up just in time. She brought me joy. Taking her hand, I knelt and brought out a diamond ring, designed by her favorite boutique artist I discovered a month ago. I had promised to answer her on my company's opening day. I didn't want to break my promise. I didn't want to lose this girl, whose eyes were full of me. Tearfully, she nodded and said, I do. Even Lucy in the crowd's back teared up. I knew she'd been stealthily checking my updates, but I couldn't give her any response. Now I need to make my life more stable and vibrant. Amid applause, my new girlfriend and I warmly embraced. In her ear, I whispered, thank you for coming into my life. As I finished, Lucy turned away to wipe her tears. This time I couldn't even softly say goodbye. I hoped that in the long river of time, we'd never meet again,